We got a shirtless Jonathan Bailey in this movie, so I have definitely been changed for good. Although, if you guys saw Fellow Travelers, this is nothing compared to that. If you know, you know.
Open up. Yeah. Now show me what my boy really wants.
And welcome to my Safe Gayven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for clicking on another video and joining me here on the Black Gay Comic Geek channel. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, let me introduce myself. My name is Michael. I call myself the Black Gay Comic Geek. I always say the things that I love to talk about here on the channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic, or any variation of the four. So I mostly like to talk about fantasy, superheroes, comic books, horror movies, and of course, I like to talk about black representation and queer representation. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you think representation matters, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. But with that said, we are here, guys, to talk about Wicked for Good. It is one of my most anticipated movies. I absolutely loved the first movie. I saw the Broadway musical about 3 times. Actually, my third time was I saw it on Sunday, this past Sunday, November 16th, for that third time. And so I've been obsessulated waiting and anticipating for this movie. Now, with that said, now that it is finally out, also let me shout out and thank Universal Pictures, because I actually got to go to the red or the black carpet world premiere in New York City for Wicked for Good. So I saw it on Monday, November 17th. And of course, being that this movie isn't like officially out yet for the public, this is going to be a non-spoiler review. So yeah, let's get into Wicked for Good. Taking place 5 years after the end of the first movie, now demonized as the Wicked Witch of the West, Elphaba lives in exile in the Ozian Forest, while Glinda resides at the palace in Emerald City, reveling in the perks and fame of popularity. As an angry mob rises against the Wicked Witch, she'll need to reunite with Glinda to transform herself and all of Oz for good. So, I want to get this part out of the way because I feel like this part is the obvious, especially if you've seen the Broadway musical. I didn't like Wicked for Good as much as I liked the first one. Now, with that said, because I feel like nuance does not seem to exist on the internet, something is either great or it's terrible, and there's no in between. So even though I personally did not like Wicked for Good as much as the first one, that does not mean I did not enjoy this movie. I absolutely really enjoyed this movie, and I totally want to see this movie again. As a matter of fact, I want to go and watch a double feature in the movie theaters of the first movie and the second movie, which is going to end up being like 5 hours in the theater. And honestly, I recommend that's how most people should see this movie. Granted, that's a lot of time, but still. And part of the reason I say that is because there was no scene in this movie for me that had me bawling like the first movie did, especially during that Oz Dust Ball scene, which still to this day has me weeping like a baby. And I was expecting to be crying uncontrollably during this movie, and honestly, I just wasn't. Now, that doesn't mean there was no emotion. I would say like Ariana Grande as Glinda in this movie, like she really shines and you get to learn more about Glinda. And in the first movie, she brought a lot of the comedy and you see some of that in this movie as well. But because of the circumstances of the world, the much more darker circumstances of the world, Ariana Grande brings a lot more emotion to her performance as Glinda. And honestly, I feel like after this movie, if they aren't already, especially from the first movie, casting directors are definitely going to be banging on Ariana Grande's doors to cast her in more movies. I mean, hell, if Rian Johnson does other more Knives Out movies, I would be surprised if she isn't in one of those Knives Out movies, because he seems to cast all of Hollywood in Knives Out. And so, yeah, her performance as Glinda definitely deserves to be recognized. Now, also, with that said, in terms of deserving to be recognized, what can I say about Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba Throp that hasn't been said already? And I'm not even just talking about her singing, but, oh man, when we get to No Good Deed, I've been waiting for No Good Deed since the first movie. That's one of my favorite songs in all of Wicked. Granted, I have a lot of favorite songs, especially like March of the Witch Hunters. I love March of the Witch Hunters. We'll get to that later. But like Cynthia Erivo's performance as Elphaba is just flawless. I can't imagine anybody playing Elphaba. And no shade to Idina Menzel, but like Cynthia Erivo's my Elphaba. Like, especially even like when you listen to the songs and listen to them singing, like I can't wait for that soundtrack to drop tomorrow. It will be all I'm going to be listening to for the rest of the year. The combination of both soundtracks, part 1 and part 2. Now, with that said, the thing I also feel like the reason I didn't like this movie as much as the first one, and let me say this, because I see a lot of people calling this a sequel, and while technically, yes, it is a sequel, it really isn't. It's just a continuation of one full story. Like, it's part 2 of another story. Like, this is literally act 2 of a play. And while act 2 definitely has some banger of songs like No Good Deed, As Long As You're Mine, March of the Witch Hunters, it is the more weaker part of the Wicked play. And that was kind of emphasized in this movie. And while act 2 on Broadway is only like 45 minutes, this movie in and of itself is about 2 hours and 12 minutes. There's so much going on in the world and like the politics of Oz and everything that's going on with Wicked, Glinda, Elphaba, I said Wicked, Glinda, Elphaba, Fiyero, etc. Like, even though this movie was longer than the Broadway play, I still feel like for this second half of the movie, because of everything that's going on, honestly, I feel like it could have and should have been longer than even the first movie. Because even though we got to see a lot of these characters, I feel like we also didn't get to see enough of these characters. And also part of the biggest draw of the Wicked movie is the relationship and the chemistry between Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande as Glinda and Elphaba. But because of the circumstances of the world, there's a lot of time where the two of them are not together. And that's the thing that shined and people loved in that first movie. And because now there's so much more runtime in this movie compared to the Broadway play, now there's so much more time where they're not together on screen. Because just Ariana and Cynthia just have really great chemistry together. Now, with that said, overall, even though we want to see more of Glinda and Elphaba, Glinda is still a terrible friend. And I feel like this movie further emphasizes that point. She's a terrible friend. And she should be the one that's punished. But that's a whole nother conversation that we got to save for a spoiler review. But yeah, she's a terrible friend. I don't even want to say friend. She's not even a friend. They say friend, but she's not a friend. That's a whole, like I said, that's a whole different discussion. But also with that said, I feel like with the extended runtime, it also makes it more obvious that other characters kind of got the short end of the stick. Like, I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunity of expanding on the character of Fiyero. We didn't really see a whole lot of Fiyero. Like, he was in scenes, but we didn't really get to learn more about his character. Like, outside of his song Dancing Through Life, and then of course he sings with Cynthia Erivo As Long As You're Mine, but we already know he's in love with Elphaba. But in terms of like getting into his psyche and like figuring out what makes him different than a lot of these other characters, because from jump, Fiyero was down bad for Elphaba. The moment he saw her, he didn't like look at her like she was crazy or look at her like she was weird from her skin. He told her, like, when she was like, "You've been Glindified." He's like, you don't have to do that, right? You're beautiful. And we see more of that in this movie. Like, he's always been a ride or die for Elphaba, but I wish we got to see like maybe his upbringing, why he's that way, and then more of his psyche, because even like Dancing Through Life, as much of a bop that song is, it's him putting on a facade. It's not really who he truly is. Like, yeah, he's somewhat shallow, but in terms of like the arc of his character, he's the one that really goes on a journey in this movie. And I wish we got to see more of that emphasized, and we really don't. And it's no spoiler to say this because they've been talking about it all over, but they do add 2 new songs in this movie, one for Elphaba and one for Glinda. Elphaba got No Place Like Home and Glinda got Girl in the Bubble. And to be perfectly honest, like, I feel like Girl in the Bubble should have been chopped, and that song, a new song, should have been given to Fiyero. Girl in the Bubble, I feel like was one of the weakest songs in the movie, and honestly, it also took away from March of the Witch Hunters, which is one of my favorite songs of Act 2. But yeah, Girl in the Bubble was not. I wasn't a fan of that song. Like, I think overall, my biggest criticism is, as long as this movie was, it still felt rushed to me. But with that said, again, nuance doesn't seem to exist on the internet. Like, this movie was still a feat. And I'm still glad that they separated these movies into two separate movies, these acts into two separate movies, because there is so much to get through and so much story to tell that it would have been weaker for it if they made it one movie. Because despite my criticisms, even what they did in this movie was still incredible. Like, again, Cynthia Erivo singing No Good Deed. And then just the direction of that sequence, not just her singing, but the way it looked on screen with her and the monkeys. And like, it was just great. Like, again, I will be listening specifically to that song over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But also, like, As Long As You're Mine, even Thank Goodness. I like Thank Goodness. And while, like I said, I do think Glinda is a terrible person and a terrible friend, I still, by the end of the movie, wanted them to at least kiss and scissor. Because while Glinda is terrible, again, just the chemistry between Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, it just leaps off the screen. Close my eyes and leap. And part of the reason I also say Glinda is a terrible, like, she's a terrible friend in the Broadway musical as well, but like, also like adding the change in the dynamic of Elphaba being a black woman. Even though she's technically not black, she's green, but she's also technically is black, because if she wasn't born green, she would have been a black woman, just like Nessa Rose is a black woman. It does make Glinda's manipulations and a lot of the way she moves, a lot of black people can relate. Like, we know white people that are like Glinda, more or less. Taking credit and seeing success from things that black people provided for you, more or less. That's essentially Glinda's character. Now, that's not me talking about Ariana Grande and her performance. I'm talking about the character of Glinda. But like I said, that's more of a different conversation and a deep dive and a spoiler review. But that doesn't take away my enjoyment from the movie. Like, I still want to see this movie again. I might go again tomorrow, Friday. I thought about going tonight, but then I decided not to. But I'm definitely going to see this movie multiple times. And I definitely think people should see Wicked for Good. It's definitely worth watching with both movies together. And I also kind of feel like, again, going back to no nuance existing on the internet, I feel like just because this movie wasn't as good as the first one doesn't mean this movie was bad. And I feel like that's how people are judging it, because, oh, I love the first one and I didn't love this one. This movie is a failure. And it's like, no, this movie was still really good. It just wasn't as good as the first. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, it wasn't terrible. And then also, you can't get back the lore and awe of seeing this Broadway musical for the first time, of seeing Oz depicted on the big screen, of seeing the chemistry between Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Like, that's also gone because we've seen it already. And so because of that, you lose some of that awe, because like, now you kind of know what to expect, especially, again, if you've seen the Broadway musical. But yeah, overall, this movie was still great. This movie was still incredible, and I can't wait for more people to see it. But with that said, that's really all I got to say, because there's not a lot I can say without getting into spoilers. But what did you think about Wicked for Good? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you cry? Because I know some people did cry by the end. I didn't. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, interact on this video for the all gay rhythm. Tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. Hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. Check out the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. And again, please, please, please hit that like button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm, getting this video out there and getting my channel out there. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.